Welcome to Recovery Unleashed, the podcast where we dive deep into transformation, healing, high performance, and recovery. I'm your host, Hannah Dalby. I'm the founder of Recovery Jungle, Recovery Unleashed. I'm an integral alchemist, food coach, a recovery expert, and also a retired professional Muay Thai fighter and current jiu-jitsu lover. In each episode, we explore what it truly takes to break free from addiction, trauma, self-sabotage, and unlocking a life truly filled with energy, success, and peace. Through my very own story of addiction recovery and raw conversations with experts, coaches, athletes, healers, we uncover the tools and mindset shifts needed to master recovery in every area of your life. This isn't just about healing, this is about unleashing your full potential. If you're ready to reclaim your life, tune in, do the work, and let's rise together. Welcome back to the Recovery Unleashed podcast, where we have Gavin Abeyratne back again after we have delivered all of the things we promised in our first podcast. And now I'm talking about some myths in burnout and the entire process of Integral Alchemy and how you can get involved in it.
Hannah.
Hi, Gav.
Last time I was virtually in this studio. Now I'm here in real life. How's that feel? Where do you feel that in your body?
Oh, yeah. Feel it in my heart and in my stomach.
Oh, that's good. Yeah? What's going on there?
I feel love.
Oh.
And I feel a little bit of like that kind of excitement when you know something big's about to happen.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. So, well, let's just go into this because that's where we're at. Last time we were here, we spoke a big game.
We did speak a big game. We always speak a big game, though.
We always speak a big game and talked about some things that were going to happen. And you asked me about this potential course that I was maybe thinking of making or something called Integral Alchemy. And how many months has it been now? 4 or 5 months since that?
It was January, I think. So, yeah, February, March, April, 3-4 months.
And
that's amazing.
Yeah. Do tell. What's been happening?
All right. So since then, we have together decided to start teaching Integral Alchemy. It has been, well, actually the first thing that happened was I taught the entire team Integral Alchemy. So we put that together. That was the first big, gigantic game step that we took, which was really freaking hard for me to go through, having to hold the entire business and the team through all of that while doing all of the alchemy in the shop.
Yep.
But it has been the best decision in business I have ever made.
Oh. There you go, folks.
How many times have I said that?
Yeah, you said a lot of times. Where I've heard it on the voice messages with the exhaust in the background. It's been nice to come here because Hannah often sends me voice messages, and it's got this. It sounds like she's driving a race car while she's sending these voice messages.
I am driving a race car,
and she is driving a race car up the hills of Butterham and what have you. So yeah, that's been really nice to receive and to see. So yeah, that's great. So I guess. What big game are we going to talk now?
Well, the other part of it is, right, like, yeah, we taught the team.
Yep.
We did it well.
Yep.
Let's teach other people.
Yep, it's coming through.
It's coming through.
Some of your cool American friends have joined. Some of my cool American friends have joined.
Yeah. And how can we change the entire world? I said big game.
Big game, yeah.
By allowing people to move through their shit properly.
Yeah.
And to remove resistance properly and to expand their capacity properly.
Yeah. Yep. Well, yeah, I mean, so you've tried this out now with some people who aren't in the traditional personal development space or even the, alchemy space or whatever you want to call it. And, this thing is designed to be secular. It's designed to be like powerful, but also palatable, right? Because it's like a lot of these things can get dismissed as woo-woo or fluffy or, whatever. And I think a lot of the really amazing practices in the, coaching and even spirituality worlds maybe don't get the recognition they need because of how they're marketed and how they're positioned, how they're language. So being a marketing consultant by trade, among other things, alchemy is designed to be quite secular. And that's really nice feedback we got even from one of your staff members, Tara, who's a yoga teacher, saying, yeah, I've been doing all this kind of stuff for, in some capacity for decades, but having secular language to talk about is really important. And so we were just talking about something really cool then, that you managed to do some of these sessions for people in sort of more traditional academia and universities, and like what's been your experience and their experience taking this kind of work into those areas?
Well, I guess the first thing is being able to keep it secular. having done similar type playing in the world before, but in really spiritual spaces when it's all like, and, you know, chakras and God and, you know, and it's like some people, it's just not going to land for them. So they push away what could be really good. And inside of this, it's like getting people that are extremely burnt out, that believe certain things of how they have to operate. Like it's, and I suppose in that world, it is like, I must work extremely hard and do everything in like endlessly to the maximum of my ability to be able to perform at this high level. And this is how it works. And they believe in the science of structure and all of those things. And very, very quickly, inside of 20 minutes, getting people to drop deeply into their body, go into completely meditative state and start realizing stories and patterns and feelings within their body that are completely holding them back and making gigantic shifts within an hour is proof that it's not all just spiritual woo-woo.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And where are those people sitting on spiral dynamics, Hannah?
No exams in the podcast, Gav.
Fair enough. Go on. Take your best
so
step.
they're blue people.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Blue people.
Although, interestingly, it was really, really interesting today. The one I did today, who I expected to be so incredibly blue, was so mad at blue.
Do tell.
So he is like all about structure and rules and the systems, and you have to follow all of the rules and all of the things. And, you know, having had a long history with this person, have experienced the other side of having those rules imposed. And his thing was like, I don't want to have all of this 5-year plan in front of me because I'm an entrepreneur and it should be flow and magic and like I want to. And I was like, this is interesting.
That is interesting. Sounds awfully familiar, doesn't it?
And I was like, oh shit. But it's like, but the way that they're expected to operate in that world is in structure and order. And so how has it ever been allowed to be said out loud that actually this is doing my freaking head in? I don't want to live in this structure and a 5-year plan because in 6 months' time, you're going to change it on me, you're going to change it on me, and I'm going to have better ideas and it's all going to flow and be magical. So I guess it's almost like having to bring on the higher levels online and allow them to be conscious
Yeah.
so that they can be integrated.
Yep. And yeah, I mean, who knows what we'll end up doing with this this podcast where we'll get a little too technical for people. But I mean, you know, in the Integral Alchemy model, the new one, we've got blue and yellow right in the center.
Yeah.
Because it really is that dance between, you know, chaos and order.
Yeah.
Order and chaos, and doing that dance between them to bring them back into structure. So that's really interesting. You bring that up as a shadow there.
Well, even so, you know, even inside of that, the chaos was also in shadow. So there was like parts of blue in shadow and parts of chaos in shadow because chaos needs weren't being met. So that tension between, well, I really want lots of chaos and no one's letting me have it, so I'm just going to like manifest it accidentally and I'm going to create all this chaos in these parts of my businesses, which could be making me heaps of money and ruining that, and trying to like stay in line in this stupid thing that is making me mediocre money.
Yeah.
When if they were both brought into consciousness, it could be quite magical in both places.
Yep. Bit of existential kink there.
Bit of existential kink.
Well, I mean, this is fun to have this conversation now, you know, 5 months down the line. It's been super fun to, well, first of all, yeah, thank you for jumping in and just being like, sure, let's learn this, let's try it. And then, you know, putting the whole team through. It's been really, really fun to see how that's come through. And yeah, I mean, where can we go from here? Like, where do you think, let's do a little prediction. 6 months from today, you know, where do you think we're going?
I think there's going to be a whole bunch of live events for people to come and learn this stuff in a big group, because how can we possibly scale this? So doing it, me and you, it needs to. I believe it needs to go into leadership development massively, because there's trauma healing inside of it, but. And that's a thing, and we definitely work with people inside of those things. I mean, we work with inside of the jungle with people on weight loss and grief from being widowed and all sorts of, you know, real life things like that. But when you turn this into leadership development and allow leaders to integrate all of those parts of themselves and operate from a place where they're not in shadow control and shadow judgment, and start being a little bit more open-hearted with the people around them and taking care of the needs of the people around them and the needs of themselves, leadership becomes, being led by someone becomes joyful.
And that's, been your transition really of these last 5 months in particular, would you say, or even before that?
Before that, like we watched it happen, as we spoke about in the last one, we watched it happen as we started doing the work together.
Yeah.
There was all the drama triangle stuff, you know, undoing myself from that. And since the last time we spoke, watching drama triangles come into my life or being tempted to come into my life, people coming in and going like, I'm going to get you. And it's like, oh, there's a hook. Like, I'm going to stay back out here on the outside of this. How much stress I don't have anymore because of that. How much calmer everything is because of that. How much I can guide my team from not getting inside of it. They're like, oh, this is happening. All right, you're just about to get pulled into a drama triangle. This is how you're not going to get in there. And everyone's just like got way more energy, way calmer, way more trusting of themselves.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful to have witnessed. And look, for what it's worth, I think that is the future of leadership development. You know, 2022 or so, I started to see this trend happening where yes, high performance is absolutely still a part of it and people can control themselves to that extent as well. But this ability to dance with chaos, to dance with volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity is what we teach in Integral Alchemy, is going to be the skill for leaders in this next era, because it's, for better or worse, there's just a lot of stuff going on and you just got to kind of be that kind of person who can dance with the chaos. And that's the trend I'm seeing across the board. I'm excited to put that out.
How can we do that right now?
Well, that's a good question. That's a good question. I guess I feel the edge is where science meets spirituality. And, I think a lot of the time people think of these two things as like different worlds, but at the limit, I think they both actually become each other. I don't think there is any contradiction between science and spirituality when you actually push it to the limit. And this is what I feel is actually happening now in the world. It's like, you look at this whole thing around like, we're all connected and we're all beings of light and it's all love and light. And on one hand, that sounds really fluffy. And yet on the other hand, it's like this country is connected by a fiber optic network where we're all communicating via beams of light and we're actually literally all connected. So in some ways, like that quite metaphysical element is actually sort of making itself manifest in the material world anyway. You know what I mean? It's like, I was just at your place and connected to the internet using Starlink. And it's like, wow, there's literal satellites from space connecting us all via like, invisible waves throughout the ether. You know what I mean? And so I find science and spirituality really start to intersect when you look at things like magnetism. And like, well, what the hell is magnetism, right? That's an insane concept in many ways that you can have. I remember sitting once at Mind Valley after I'd sort of helped automate everything. I was sitting there with some magnets that my friend gave me. They're called Bucky balls from Buckminster Fuller.
Right.
And there's little balls you put together. I remember having this paper set here and having two magnets on either side. And was just noticing how like force could be transmitted through paper.
Yeah.
It's like, that's wild if you think about it. Like, where else in life can like an invisible force like move through, a solid material and affect another solid material on the other side of it? That's kind of wild as a concept. And then, of course, this whole infrastructure we live in is, people communicating via invisible waves and electromagnetic waves, which is, of course, the same spectrum as light. And so this is kind of where my headspace is at now, where it's like as you start to push into the boundaries of, quantum physics, quantum computing, artificial intelligence, virtual reality, you're like, these things are looking an awful lot like, like spiritual concepts. And, of course, in Hinduism, it's hilariously I'm obviously, my dad's a Buddhist, but I'm not super religious in that way. But my Uber driver actually was, amazing Hindu guy whose parents were Brahmin priests in Nepal. And he was like, I don't really think about it much, but he had this incredible wealth of knowledge. And I was talking to him about Maya, the grand illusion, of course, that like all physical matter is just like it's an illusion. And a lot of these things are starting to now converge with science. So I'm quite excited to, bridge that gap between science and spirituality. And then I think that can really be an interesting pathway to integrate integral alchemy as a philosophy that doesn't see science as inconsistent with spirituality, but sort of finds consistency and wholeness between the two.
So explain then, now that we have all of the structures in place of integral alchemy, you can probably give it some words. Explain then how the actual process of somatic, moving energy somatically becomes spiritual?
It's a great question. Well, it's direct experience, right? So I had a mentor and client and friend and just amazing all-around dude called Jeffrey Martin, and he basically said that people who want to experience enlightenment or these altered states, sometimes reading about them too much can actually stop you from experiencing them because you're in your mind. And it's like you can't get out of your mind with your mind. And so Integral Alchemy, in many ways, like it has a very experiential approach. Even the people that we trained before, everyone was asking, show me the materials, show me the reading, show me the... I'm like, no. We're going to go straight to direct experience. And when someone has a direct experience of it, they're kind of like, oh, okay. Right?
Yeah.
I didn't even know that was what that is. And so the nature of the states of consciousness we help people go to, they're inherently called ineffable. You know, in other words, they can't actually be described using words.
Yes.
Which is true for most transcendent experiences. So they go
Yes.
beyond words. But what I feel is actually happening is that when people can shut down that part of their brain which is trying to process things in a very linear, in many ways reductive way, and can experience the direct experience of reality, you can have a much richer experience of it. And you can't help but be humbled by what it is you feel.
Yeah.
I think that's what it is. You can't help be humbled by what it is you feel. And you can kind of bridge that gap between knowing that your brain is the most complex organism in the world and all this kind of stuff, and then feeling that, like, wow, is this what the capacity I have within my own mind? You know, that this has been sitting here this whole time. The thing that's really been amazing for me and that I love is as people notice that these states of consciousness and these ways of experiencing the world are accessible to them directly through themselves, almost at any given time, without any need for anything other than potentially a practitioner to help guide them, and then also eventually, as they learn how to do it, to guide themselves back into their own bodies.
It's actually been the coolest thing I've watched in training the team is like Deb coming back and going, yeah, like this is super cool, but I'm going home now and I get triggered by something and I just like feel it in my body and breathe and bring in source and bring in the earth and I'm sweet.
Yeah.
And she's just so stable and grounded and expansive now. And she's not done that many alchemy sessions.
Yeah.
She's just gotten such a good concept and grasp on it that she's now gone, well, hang on, why don't I just feel my stuff?
Yep. Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And so, yeah, we can definitely take it to that level too. And I think, you know, the phrase metacognition has probably been thrown around, which is being aware of awareness. Something that I started using, I'm not sure if I coined it or not, but if I did, yay. I would call it somatic metacognition, right? Which is just like really being aware of what is going on in your internal sensations. Often because it's like, you know, we feel as though when we get triggered, it happens instantly. It doesn't happen instantly, right? It's like there's a buildup where that kettle's essentially boiling before it starts to pop.
Yeah.
And as you sort of attune back into the body, tuning into those sensations, you can really notice them happening before they actually happen.
Yeah.
I've noticed this in you now. It's amazing. I can see when we start talking about something triggery, I see you just like taking deep breaths, like probably like 5 to 10 minutes before this is about to get like too intense. And so you're just staying really regulated, which is such a cool thing to witness, you know?
I mean, I even witness it now, like when me and Deegan go through like hard stuff and it's been hard for a couple of days.
Yeah.
And like almost nothing. And I'll be like, adrenaline's running, this is now happening. And I'm like, okay, cool. Like we need to not do any hard conversations right now because I'm severely dysregulated.
Yeah.
And so even though we're moving through extremely hard things, it's like at this level, like we're moving like this because we're both like, okay, now this is happening and now this is happening and now this is happening.
Yeah.
And so it just like prevents volatility.
Yeah. Yeah, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing to witness. I mean, it's witnessing the witnessing. Witnessing you, witnessing.
Are we even real?
I think so.
Dad was talking to me about it this morning. He's like in tears because he gets to go visit the grave of Socrates.
Oh, fantastic.
And he's like, remember Socrates, Hannah? And I was like, you know the book that I showed you that he read me when I was like 7?
Yeah,
Sophie's World.
Yeah, wow. Yeah.
And I was like, yeah.
Amazing guy, your dad,
You
by the
really
way.
fucked me up with that. And he's like, I know, you came to my room crying, like, am I even real, Dad?
Well, I mean, that's an amazing point because it's like, well, what is the intersection point between science and spirituality? I think it's something we don't really talk about enough. And what's philosophy?
Yeah.
Right? It's another pathway to get it, right? And it's like, well, these are really important questions. And I think when you start, you know, and we can have this discussion next, eventually people ask why. Like, why am I doing all this? Why am I working so hard? What is the actual point of this? Like, and, you know, when you take some time off, like, what the hell are we actually doing here?
Yeah.
You know, and those sort of self-transcendent questions, I guess the other intersection point, you know, so with Integral Alchemy now, we've added 2 S's. Sexuality, it just kept coming up, and it's interesting and fun, so we made that part of it. And then, of course, spirit is part of it now too. So we've got 8 S's, which forms a nice little infinity loop. And in many ways, it starts and ends with spirit. And at the start, it's asking, in terms of spirit, well, what is my self-transcendent purpose beyond even just this sort of like individual self? And very nice regulation there, Hannah. Big questions. Beyond this individual sense of self and what I can achieve, myself in a lifetime, or even for myself, like what is the bigger transcendent purpose? And that, I think, is to some extent a philosophical question, to some extent a spiritual question, and in many ways also kind of just a practical question that people often ask themselves at certain points in their career and life.
Yeah. And it's actually really interesting in watching people go through alchemy from almost nothing and then almost like accidentally landing there.
Tell me.
Like first move out of all the things out of the way, and then suddenly it's like, you know what? I think I want to give back to the world in some way. It's just like an automatic thing that happens when you deal with your shit and you become really aware of what's happening in your body, because that's probably true for every living being that we want to give. We want to help. It's a part of who we are to give back. Like there's more joy in that, but it's also suppressed because we can't even give to ourselves first. And the moment you get all of your needs met, it's like, oh, now how can I give this to everyone else?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think you're spot on. I think that's both a true and beautiful way of seeing the world, and a really nice reason for doing this work. And so the second S after spirit at the start is stage, and that's kind of what that's around, right? It's around stages of development. And when people have a gap in a stage where they don't necessarily get that need met, it can hijack the rest of it, so they can never go beyond self-actualization into self-transcendence. I'm not sure if we talked about this in the last podcast, but Maslow, who everyone sort of bases their life goals off, had self-actualization at the top of the pyramid until he had a heart attack. I think it was a heart attack, and almost died, and then started asking those sorts of questions, right? And then just before he died, it never really got made too public, but he added self-transcendence to the top of the pyramid. So actually, the highest level is not self-actualization, where you're trying to achieve as much as you can. It's actually sort of to transcend the self, and that's where your sense of self expands from this like locus of just yourself to your family, your community, and then to the broader world as well.
I actually remember like a really big moment inside of when we were teaching the team that this happened. No, it was before we started teaching the team. It was like the moment of like, I'm going to teach the team. I don't know what work we had just done. Something shifted, and I suddenly was like, holy shit, I need to make millions of dollars so that I can pay my team all of the money that they're worth, so they can have the lives they want, which means that there is nothing other than me going off my back and like all cards on the table, everything I've got, let's train the team, let's have everything down. Like I don't even care what happens to me. I just want to make this amazing for all of these people in front of me that are here to believe in my dream. So give a shit what happens to me along the way. Like we're all in.
Yeah.
I remember that decision. I remember going upstairs like to Deb and being like, I've made this decision because it's all about you guys. I want to make you guys' lives amazing. You should be earning so much money and living the dreams of your life. And oh my God, like, so we're going to do this crazy thing. And she was like, oh, fuck. Okay.
Yeah.
Really hitting that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shit changes and shit gets way better when you hit that.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. It really does. And it's cool that that's, if we're going to go a little spiritual, that's where my mindset's at. It's about to do the final S on spirit. That shows up in lots of different religions too, like that's what some people would call the coming of Christ consciousness.
Yes.
The flourishing of Christ consciousness. Right, and that's like, not to get all Christian mystic on everyone, but it's like, it's that energy of being willing to sacrifice or put yourself in the line of fire for something bigger than yourself, right? Now, that confused the crap out of me because, as I said, raised Buddhist and Catholic at the same time, a little confused, that's where I'm here. But I remember, in Catholic school looking at like the crucifix, and I was like, I don't get it. Why does this guy need to like die to save himself from the sins of his father? Like, none of it made sense to me. But it was actually even, during my time at Mind Medicine when, geez, we put a lot on the line and sacrificed a lot as well. I was like, oh, I can kind of feel into what this is, right? Like not a literal father, but it's like throwing yourself, open arms, heart open, copping it all, sacrificing yourself for something, bigger than yourself or for people that you care about that you'd be willing to take some harm for. And that's where a really particular type of leadership comes online,
Yeah. And it's both excruciatingly painful and insanely beautiful at the same time.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and people love it. I mean, it's like the ultimate leadership hack because it's not a hack.
Yeah.
You know, you can't actually like hack it. People can feel into it, you know?
Yeah, you can't fake it.
You can't fake it.
No.
So yeah, that's really cool. And I think even in Hinduism, according to my Uber driver.
Yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, hell, if you find yourself with a smart Uber driver, you should talk to him. But I was Googling it furiously. I'll chat GPTing it furiously afterwards. And I was like, oh, does this concept exist in Hinduism? I think it's called Ajna, which is the concept of sacrifice. And it's like, you know, there's the rituals of sacrifice and the devotional stuff where it's like, let's put some stuff out. But the concept I think they're trying to teach is that there's a real power in sacrifice and consciously choosing your sacrifice, which is, I think, quite a different flavor of spirituality from like it's all love and light. And if it doesn't feel good, then I'm not being, you know, spiritual kind of thing.
I'm so done with that stuff. Hey?
Tell me.
I mean, like, I kind of got done with it watching it happen so much. And it's like, I guess in the psychedelic world and especially in the circles that are in Australia, and I don't know, I guess in the spiritual world in general, there is so much like, just raise your vibration to this level and you can have everything you want. And if you're only love and light, then you can just always be an amazing. And even people that meditate so much, it's like, oh, just go back to God, go back to God. And they're like just living up here. And it's like, you are not in this world at all. Like, did you not come here to have a human experience and to feel all of the depths of all of the emotions and have all of the fun and all of the joy and all of the play and get ripped to shreds and get put back together again and like do something? And like, so that's that part of it where they're just like playing up in the fairies all of the time. But I think it's also quite dangerous to only be in love and light all the time because it's just bypass and it's just constant bypass, which comes out in shadow anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, and potentially illness. A lot of time illness, unfortunately.
Yeah.
That's where I think, you know, you can, I mean, I liken it to like taking painkillers, right? It's like you can have a serious problem with your head in terms of like chronic headaches and what have you, and just be taking painkillers. And you probably feel fine until, you know, that chronic headache might have actually been indicative of something that needed to be dealt with and confronted in a different way. And so, you know, I've had an interesting relationship with bypass because I sort of thought about it. And like in many ways, I've been guilty of perpetuating bypass through proxy, you know, in my various roles throughout the years, sort of, you know, ignorant to really understanding the full spectrum of what that is. I knew that there was a problem, but I didn't really know what the solution was, you know, because it sounds good in theory. Like, yeah, of course people want to be in states of love and joy and, you know, compassion and enlightenment. And it's like, you don't really want to be in guilt and attachment and desire. But it was only through sort of remembering my own initial training, funnily enough, because I dropped out of law school, but I did a double degree in arts and law. And in arts, I majored in behavioral studies, which is all Jungian stuff. It was only the reintegration of that disowned part of me where I was like, oh, actually, this is why this isn't sitting well with me, because in the Jungian philosophy, it's about wholeness, right? It's about acknowledging that actually guilt is a pretty useful emotion. You know what I mean? Like terrible guilt to the point where you're like, you know, in its constant state of guilt is pretty bad. But like if you get rid of guilt, technically someone who doesn't have any guilt is called a psychopath. Yeah. So it's like, well, I think we need a healthy level of guilt. I think we need to feel these things and be able to have the discernment to know what is our negative conditioning and to really find some, I'm not even going to use the word balance, but find some sort of truth and be able to witness what is conditioning and what is sort of more actual essence, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I watch it happen. It happens in almost everything, right? Like if you're trying to build muscle and look amazing and you don't build foundational joint strength and do like it's foundations work.
Foundations, yeah.
And like go to the painful, boring stuff to be able to then rise back up well.
Yeah.
Or you try and do it but doing it off like real shit diet.
Yeah.
And then like you like always, you've got an opposing force there all of the time.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, you can be there, but you've always got this opposing force. Like that's exhausting. That has to come out somewhere else.
Yeah.
Like, and it does 100% come out in diseases everywhere or overweight or arguments in relationships or failed marriages because it's like, oh, well, like everything's amazing.
Yeah.
You know, you can just completely go to the actual core of it and feel it, experience it, go to the end of the line in the pain.
Yeah.
It's done.
Yeah.
And then you can come up.
Yeah. And look, I've had to sort of do this dance between like, funnily enough, my fantastic Uber driver, Sunil was his name, in case you're watching this, Sunil. Great guy. Sunil, in fact, actually means deep blue, apparently.
Really?
Su means, yeah.
You've been on ChatGPT a lot since that.
No, he told me that one. He told me that one. But, you know, this was crazy. this is funny. This is where I get my education, ladies and gentlemen, just directly from a Brahmin priest's child. He goes, there are three forces in the Hindu tradition, three major deities. I think it was, I'm not going to do justice, but it was Brahma, Vishnu, and one other. I'm going to check my phone in a sec. But basically, they formed creation, destruction, and preservation. And I thought that was really interesting because like those are the kind of forces that we're always playing with in doing this kind of work. And so if you take that sort of spiritual lens on transformation, it's like, well, how do you sort of play with these forces in a way that doesn't necessarily explode everything you have in your life straight away, and still has that transformation be sustainable? And I think that's where Integral Alchemy can really come through, because we aim for like an adaptive form of transformation, not the only party trick being let's just blow everything up,
Yeah. Yes.
Because staging is important and like pacing is important. And it's like, it's funny, it's like, obviously I'm a dad at the moment. Maybe not obvious, or maybe it is from the dad bod. Who knows?
We're working on that.
We're working on that. We'll get me into some better shape. But I mean, there's a period of life where it's like, yeah, you kind of do need to just bypass and push through a little. And it's like, it's been interesting for me to sort of check my bypass shadow and to be like, yep, there's a time and a place where you might need to do this, but like, know you're on borrowed time.
Yeah.
Like know that you can't do this forever. And if you're not sort of using that time to make some good long-term plans around like, well, is this actually sustainable? Then you're going to, potentially blow yourself up. And so there might be some obligations and commitments and things you kind of need to do, challenging periods of childhood or whatever it is, child raising, But even from my perspective, I'm like, okay, is this this too shall pass moment, or is this I need to make some fundamental changes moment? And getting the discernment to know between the two is ultimately the best thing, even for my kids in that situation, who I would be actually trying to claim that I'm doing all this for. Mm-hmm. Right? Because it's like the flip side of that is like, oh, no, I'm just doing all this work and sort of, neglecting myself for my kids. And then, of course, what happens? They don't get their dad for as long, as they don't get him at his fullness, they don't get him at his healthiest, and all these sorts of things. So it's not quite as simple as it might seem.
Yeah. I really like that as well about the process, because it can be really surgical.
Yes.
It doesn't need to be a big blow up all of the time. It's like, yeah, you can go back to work after this. You can keep running at a high level. You can keep doing high performance things. You can just like do some alchemy, go back into your thing, do all of your responsibilities, come back and then deal with it then. You can say no for a little bit.
Yeah.
You can get just some regulation.
Yeah.
And to be honest, like it is the thing that should be done inside, like before and after all of the blow up techniques anyway.
Totally agree. Yeah, totally agree. So we can talk a little bit about the structure of it, how it's designed. Is that before and after all the process? I mean, it at its core, Integral Alchemy, the community is forming through, and it is a container, and that container is where people can come in, do the foundational work, have a map and a model for understanding their own processes and the process of people around them through that 8S model, and then go into weekly community and connection, which in and of itself, to be entirely blunt with you, just doing that alone is quite transformative for people to be brought back into their bodies and to have shared common people around them.
Number one predictor of longevity is connection. Out of all of the biohacking in the entire world, you get connection right, you're going to add some years to your life.
Love that. So community and connection at its core, with shared common philosophy and of owning my control shadow. People aren't allowed in the community until they've gone through the course. So everyone's got shared common frameworks and understanding and knowledge, and be like, okay, cool. That sort of makes sense. We can all have these chats. And then when we do trigger ourselves invariably, or trigger each other invariably in that community, people can take a step back and sort of know that it's not a personal thing, and map it to the model. And then from there, as you said, surgical work. If people want to actually go deep into alchemy on sort of a particular part of life or a particular area, they can go through the 3Ds process and have that particular part of their life examined, mapped, surgically dived into, stitched up into recovery, and then have that community as a baseline the whole time as well.
Yeah.
And a lot of the people I've talked to, even in the therapy world, are like, that's genius. I love this, that people like come in and they've got that sort of nice getting cleaned off before they enter a community, getting the shared common maps and models, and then getting into as well. So it's shaping up pretty well.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell us about then your experience being on the other side of it for the last 3 months.
Receiving or training?
Receiving.
I can't help but smile every time you're like, good, now close your eyes. I'm like, and scan your body. One of the things I felt coming into this well, first of all, there was a deep level of trust for you as a person and a lot of respect and admiration for you because you just show up on time all the time and how you do anything, how you do everything. So I'm like, all right, Hannah is a deeply ethical person. So I was like, if anyone would be the person I want to train this through, I think it would be you because you've also got those ethics, which I think is important. So that's probably the first thing. So thank you. Secondly, what's it been like on the receiving end? I mean, pretty damn incredible is the short answer to that question. Invaluable in many ways because a lot of the problems that I would experiencing certainly this level of quote unquote success in my life. I got a lot of shit together in many ways. It's like they are surgical challenges, right? It's like it's not broad strokes things. It might often be like really tiny little beliefs or tiny little patterns that I have, which are sabotaging me in really negative ways, and I don't even notice. And so it's been really nice to bring those up, even if they're a little uncomfortable, and then be able to have those conversations with the people in my life. For me, it's obviously very family oriented. Even conversations with my daughter, for example. It's like there's a great quote by Jung: "The child's biggest burden is the unlived life of the parent."
Yeah.
Right. And it's like this other person said the biggest predictor of like a child's well-being is actually how happy the parent is in their job or something crazy like that. Right.
Oh yeah.
So, well, yeah. Right. And so it's like, on one hand, you're like, oh, I'm sacrificing for my kid. But it's like, well, kind of not really. So it's a little bit of a dance. But so in terms of what it's been like for me to check some of those things, it's made me, definitely a better husband, better father. As I came on this trip, Molly's like, why are you going? Why are you going to work? And I was like, because I like my work and I really want to go in my job. And she's like, oh, okay. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Right. I'm not telling her a story like, oh, I have to and work sucks. And I was like, no, I really want to. And Dad really likes doing things for himself as well. And she's just like, okay, I'll miss you. I was like, I'll miss you too. And that's good, because otherwise, what are you putting in your child's mind? Anyway, long story short. So these are the kind of situations where it's like, well, that could have gone in very different directions if I was just regulated and I was just like, because I have to provide for you and that's why I have to do all these things. And like, well, what's she going to internalize then?
My fault, Dad's gone.
Yeah. And then, and it hit me on the head at one point, even just a few weeks ago, before I'd sort of had, even realized, she goes, I don't want too much money. I don't want too much money because then you'll have to go away. And I was like, oh, fuck.
Oh, shit.
Kind of nip that one in the bud, Yeah. I'm just like, no, I'm not just working for money. In fact, I barely even really think about it. I'm just working because I really like it. And she's like, oh, okay, cool. So it's like we talk about money even being one of the stickiest things to rewire in people because it's so loaded around all of these things, right? You spend 40 hours, people spend a lot of their time working. So, it's things like that, right? It's like it's not some major thing where Gav needs some huge blow up, but it's just like the subtle elements of self-awareness and metacognition and whatever you want to call it. Has been super, super, super useful. And then for me also, obviously got a lot of chops in certain areas of life. Health coaching, food coaching, not one of them. I was historically from the Warren Buffett School of Health, which is like, McDonald's in denial. And
how's that changed?
Well, I think from a health coaching perspective, you've shown me that like, it can actually be really fun and really nourishing to really eat well. Cooking a steak last night, which was restaurant quality. Truly, I've been to some of the top steak. I have been to the top steak places in Australia, and this was really right up there. It's been a really interesting experience for me to have the ineffable experience, I suppose, of putting it to words now. How do I explain it? There's been a lot, right? There's been a lot. I don't know if we're going to talk about that today, otherwise it was formulated my thinking a bit better. But it's been life-changing, right? So as I start to then sort of put some of my own self needs and being able to be in touch with my own somatic and bodily needs and be attuned to that, I'm sort of more able to notice what feels good inside me, what doesn't feel good inside me, what might be, trying to meet another need, if I'm bored or lonely and just want some sugar or something like that versus actually needing nourishment. And yeah, the impact on my family's been huge. Even Steph was just like, yeah, I've lost like 10 kilos just from you changing your diet and eating mostly meat now and not sort of indulging in that. So you can, so how do you put a price on that, right? How do you value that? It's ineffable, but it's
because
been really
it becomes
nice.
The rest of your life now.
Yeah.
And I actually think that it should be done side by side because you want to be regulated on 100 grams of sugar. Nope.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Or come down of.
And so this is where I think this is why I'm excited to do this work with you and excited for the nature of how this is progressing because it's like, Integral Alchemy is a really good map and model that can also be integrated within other people with their incredible zones of genius. It's like it's very likely that you've forgotten more about health and nutrition than I'll ever know. You know what I mean? And so to have this model used in that way for helping people transform their weight is just not even just weight, but also like general levels of performance is really exciting.
I think the weight actually becomes a side benefit of it, like unless it's a serious thing, like there's visceral fat that needs to be dealt with because otherwise you might die early.
Yes.
The weight is always a side benefit. What happens first is energy comes back online.
Yeah.
Fatigue goes away. Clarity is there. Energy is like through the roof. Suddenly you can like make clearer decisions. You are regulated. Like there is nothing more dysregulating than the up and down of insulin and glucose crashes and rises.
Yep.
Nothing more dysregulating.
Yeah.
And I mean, we even did last week, I was like in a pretty dysregulated state on a Sunday. We'd gone through some shit and I was like, I'm just not going to eat until this is sorted out. Just to keep myself inside of the feeling until I was actually regulated again. Otherwise, I'm not even going to digest the food anyway. You can't digest food properly if your nervous system's like gone off the Richter scale and you got adrenaline running everywhere. It just doesn't happen. So what's the point other than to escape from what I'm feeling?
Punchy.
Yeah.
I would drop the mic if it wasn't attached to a stand. But all right, so let's take it to that place then. Escape what I'm feeling. How much of what we're doing is designed to escape what people are feeling? Why is that a bad thing?
I think that it is most of what we do until it becomes out of shadow. So I look at people that are like, well, I'm super successful because I've worked extremely hard and I haven't slept very much and I've really pushed my way here. Sure. At the expense of what? At the expense of your family, your relationships, your health, your sanity, your mental health, your joy. And I feel like that process is done to escape feeling the things. And there's probably stories that are sitting inside of that system of you're only worthy if, or whatever that might be. And so that is the driver of it. And all it would have taken is a simple, not easy, but simple.
Truth. Yeah.
Deep dive into, well, I actually have always felt that I'm not a worthy human being unless I do this, and otherwise I will fail. And if I fail, then no one will love me, and that might mean death. And to feel that and express what needed to be expressed in all sorts of moments in life, just going through that little process allows that to dissipate, and then it's consciously choosing to either work that hard or not work that hard, right? Like, so for example, the last 3 months, the last couple of weeks have gotten easier, but whilst we were teaching everyone alchemy, it was like, I'm going in. I'm consciously going to go in. This is going to hurt like all buggery. And I didn't actually know how much it was going to hurt, but it hurt like all buggery. Knowing that I'm going to come out of it, and what I want most is to rest and to be inside of my feelings and to regulate myself. But it was a conscious choice, and not because I'm a piece of shit if I don't do it.
Yeah, I love that. I love that rather than sort of throwing the baby out with the bathwater and being like, oh, you can never, because there is a lot of truth in that, right? It's like, I know that feeling when you said the person was just like, yeah, I work, and then when I think it's done, I do even more. And then when I think it's done, I do even more. It's like, I know what that feels like to push that level. And I know that does create excellence.
Yes.
Like no one's lying about that. No one's disputing that. But like you're saying, if that's the only way you know how to do things, like you can't be on that level all the time without the recovery to deal with it. And you don't want to throw that away totally. You want to have the ability to access it. So it's cool that you've really kept that online and could throw down into this place now.
Yeah.
Because you really did push it. I mean, you punched it.
I know.
I was like, are you okay? You're like, I'm okay. Just.
How many alchemies are you doing a week?
Yeah.
I don't know, man. But I fucking love it.
Yeah, well, I mean, which is kind of cool. I mean, there was at the early stage, it was just like, oh, I'm carrying a lot of people's trauma. Can you help me get rid of that? I'm like, all right, I'll take it off you.
I remember that. You like literally took it. I was like, oh, fuck, I've got a headache now.
Yeah, well, what can you do?
So, I mean, I had this conversation the other day of like, because I still had some panic sitting there. And I was like, if I remove this panic, what will be my driver for getting things done?
Great question. Yeah.
And can I trust that in removing the panic, I care enough about what I'm doing to continue to do it?
Fuck yes.
Right?
So beautifully articulated. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And I did. I moved the panic out of the way, and I'm like, I wouldn't change a single thing I'm doing. There is no way. You can give me $20 million and I'm doing the same things every day.
Yeah.
Just maybe with a few more VAs.
Gold teeth, more rings, but like same thing, more bling, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
same
because
thing, more
because I actually love what I'm doing, and so some parts of operation might be a trauma and getting some kind of shadow thing sorted out.
Yeah.
And so much of it is getting weird kinks met.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, this is the God honest truth. Like some people enjoy pain or the experience of pushing themselves. I certainly do, certainly at times, right? It's like, it's always been this way, so I totally feel that. And it could be well, I mean, that was the question you just asked, like if I lost this edge or I lost this sort of panic, would I still be able to drive? Yeah, in my experience, and certainly what Jeffrey Martin told me coming out of Silicon Valley was the number one reason why people avoided doing like this kind of work that they knew would like sort out their inner stuff because they were concerned that they'd lose their edge. And I mean, I guess the short answer to that question is not only does your motivation remain, it becomes significantly more sustainable and in many ways more expansive as well.
Yes.
And you don't necessarily lose that edge. As Hannah said, you can sort of bring it back online. But maybe this is a good time to sort of jump into some of the myths that you found talking to a bunch of high performers and even experiencing in yourself and sort of debunking some of those. How's that sound?
Sounds good.
Sounds good. So myth number one, and these are all nuanced, right? There's all some partial truths in these things. So feel free to explore it. Myth number one we have is that success requires sacrifice. Dígame. Spanish for tell me.
It doesn't require sacrifice. It's something, I mean, this is an interesting thing because we've just spoken about how it was actually a really amazing thing to sacrifice it all and throw it all on the table. Inside of that, though, I also did my recovery and I also maintained my relationship and did deep work on my relationship and ate food really well and made sure I went to bed at the right time every night. And so there was no part of my health that got sacrificed. There was no part of my relationship that got sacrificed. There was no part of my connection that got sacrificed.
That's awesome. So what did you sacrifice then?
A little bit of energy. What I sacrificed was the perceived safety that I thought that I had that wasn't real.
So you sacrificed the illusion.
Yeah.
Sacrificed the bullshit.
Yeah.
There you go.
And I watch this all of the time, people thinking, if I want to be this successful, I just can't get to the gym. It's impossible for me to eat well because I don't have time. It's impossible for me to have whatever I want to really have sorted out because of all of this stuff that I've got to do. Athletes, right? If I'm going to be an athlete, it's all I'm going to do. I have to sacrifice my entire life. I did it. Sacrificed all of my relationships, absolutely everything. It was only dieting, running, and kicking people in the face. That's all I did. And everything else was a sacrifice. And it just doesn't need to be that way. Inside of doing all the other things well, you end up with more success.
So the partial truth is maybe that doesn't necessarily require sacrifice. And if you do sacrifice something, it might just be your limiting beliefs around sacrifice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, so what's interesting also is that this program is designed to get people to a stage of development where things stop being binary and contradictions start to reconcile.
Yes.
And multiple things can be true at the same time. And so you certainly do move into nuance. And so you move out of what we call a partial paradigm into a more whole paradigm.
I tell you what, you do have to sacrifice KFC,
Yeah.
Binge drinking.
Yes.
So the potentially is sacrifice inside of it.
Yeah.
It's not the things you think, though.
Beautiful. Love that. All right. Myth number 2. If I slow down, I'll fall behind.
Slow is smooth and smooth is fast. And you will go faster if you slow down. Yeah. The decisions that you make from a place of slowness and clarity are 10 times better than the decisions you make in panic and manicness. The ability to see opportunities, to witness opportunities, to have conversations that get to the end, that take you to some place, happen in a place of slowness, happen in a place of clarity, happen in a place of well-rested state of mind. I always do better at life if I spend half my day on the couch. Always. And it's not because I'm resting my body. It's because my mind has space to unpack ideas and problems without trying to force it done.
Yeah, very true. And very true. And I guess for the type of clients you'll often work with who are, first generation from scratch entrepreneurs, much like yourself, right, who really did have to punch it in that first stage, the 0 to 1 stage, as Peter Thiel would call it. But now at a place where obviously there's only so much one person can do. They're leading a team, they're managing, they're potentially raising cash or expanding the business. Like, tell me about that sort of experience for you from going as like sort of a solo operator to someone now who leads a team, and why slowing down in that context is so much more important.
Because you just can't see things from a place of panic and too fast and too much and manic energy. You can't see things. You can't sit down and complete a task. If I really want to change something inside of the business, I need a day to go further in and further in and further in and further in. And if I get stuck, I need to go and spend 10 minutes outside and then go, okay, now this is the thing. I need space for things to arise. Like if you're like in the middle of being inside of the business, doing all of the work and trying to manage the team and trying to do the marketing and trying to do and do all of those things and paint your house and do your gardening and get your house clean and and then something comes up, you can't get that solved. So you just get like all of these problems bank up. Then you feel shit about yourself because you've got all these problems banked up that you can't solve and you're not doing very well. Then you get behind on your work. Now you're feeling guilty. This ain't a recipe for anything good.
Might be a KFC recipe in there somewhere. Secret recipe. Yeah, I mean, that was an awesome example. And so tell me about so that's scenario A. What's scenario B?
Intentional time to do things. To stop, even between tasks. Like if you just stop between tasks and take 15 minutes and just don't think about anything, you'd be surprised at what your mind can solve and come up with and realize that needs to be done. Needing things to be done by a certain date or having to have save the world and solve the world by a certain date just creates lots of panic. If you really, really want to do something and just go, it doesn't matter, I'm going to get there and just let it go. It takes as long as it takes. If I need to rest, I need to rest. You will move faster.
Yeah, that's been one of the nicest things working with you, actually, is that, you really do live that one. And that's, in many ways, testament to a lot of the stuff we've been able to get done is your lack of, and in many ways, the speed at which we've done it, actually.
Because it's so fast doing it that way.
Yeah, it's a lack of sort of, attachment to the date and more, the technical term we use is emergence.
Yes.
Right? It's just like the things will naturally emerge. And I guess, as you're talking about dancing with chaos, it's like you really need to create the space to see what's going on and notice what emerges and react from that. Amazing. Okay. Slow down to speed up. Slow is smooth, and smooth is fast.
Slow is smooth, smooth is fast.
Good. Very good. Myth number 3, feeling good is a bonus, not a requirement.
Try and tell me the times where you've tried to do work and you've been tired, on a sugar come down, in an emotional state, feeling shitty about something, and you've tried to get something done, in comparison to the time where you've been in connection all the day before, you've eaten really well, you've had the best sleep, and what kind of stuff do you produce?
And what's the opposite side of that? Like, what's the partial truth? So why might someone be clinging into this idea that feeling good isn't a luxury that they can afford right now?
There's, I think, a story that I hear a lot that I must suffer to get somewhere, and that it kind of ties into the sacrifice of there's no way I can possibly feel good and achieve this much because other people are like pushing harder and doing more, and I must do more than everyone else to be able to get there. And actually what is true is if you're in a state of alignment and feeling really good and you're confident and you've eaten really well and your skin's amazing and you're feeling strong and you're feeling fit and you like had amazing sex last night and you had some time this morning with the kids and you're like, oh yeah, and I'm going to like get some training this afternoon, some sunshine.
Yeah.
anything that arrives to you, you're going to do like a boss.
Yeah.
So the best thing you could possibly do for yourself is get yourself into that state as often as possible.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Love that. All right. Myth number 4. If I stop pushing, I'll lose my edge.
Yeah. This is really fresh.
Yeah. This is surrender and control, or force and flow. Tell me in terms of the polarities.
Yeah. If you, anything that forced has resistance, right? So if you're like forcing against something and then you've got internal resistance or external resistance, you're just going to keep getting more exhausted and more nowhere, and miss doors, miss opportunities, miss different pathways that can happen. If you're like, this is the only, like this is the way, it's just resistance from every angle. And it's taking a step back and allowing things to come to you a little more allows you to respond and not react. And a responsive human being does. This is what starts to get a little bit spiritual now, right?
Well, that's why we added S to the spirit. Like, can't not talk about spirit. Do tell, yeah.
I find, and this does get quite spiritual, I suppose. But if I find that when I let go of all of the force of this must be done and I have to get this done, and oh my God, the 8,000 list, and I'm going to work till the end of the day, and just kind of sit back and go like, all right, what are we going to do?
Yeah.
And how are we going to do it? And until I have the answer, I'm going to do nothing. It's kind of like God energy comes through and it just kind of comes out because there's space for it. I'm not pushing towards something that's not necessary.
Yep. Yeah. And again, like, I think Hannah's a really good example of this, because she can definitely push, and like you can still push, but it's like what we focus on is the management of a polarity and understanding that like force is just one part of that spectrum and flow is on the opposite side. And sometimes you need to force for a while, then pull back,
Well, here's how I look at it. Wait for the inspiration. And it's not always just waiting around doing nothing. Like, for sure, stuff needs to get done. And so this is a tight-knit dance, for sure.
Yep.
When the inspiration comes, it's like, oh, this is the thing that needs to be done. Then you push.
Yep.
Rather than just pushing randomly at stuff, hoping something gets finished.
Yep. Yeah, 100%. And I mean, it's funny, even in relationships, like, sometimes you push, but like thing you need to do actually is to pull back.
Yeah.
Create some space.
Yeah.
We were talking about this morning.
Yeah. I mean, you do that with any piece of work.
Yep. 100%.
Just put it down.
Yep.
Like 15 minutes can change the entire trajectory of something. A night's sleep can change. I mean, I watch people a lot go, I just need to get this done by the end of the day. It just has to be done by the end of the day. The magic in going, it's 3 p.m, I'm going to go to the forest for a few hours and I'm going to go to bed early, get up early and start it again tomorrow. You get fresh brain, you get fresh energy, you get like all this alignment. It is so much smarter to operate from that way, to be able to put things down and open them back up again when you're feeling good and in alignment and back in flow. All of those states are much better to operate from. And sure, there's times when there's an actual deadline. That does happen. It's not like you can never do this again. But if 80% of the time you're like allowing yourself, the more you allow yourself to stop, put things down and have all the other things in your life run well, which makes you feel good, which has all your other needs met, so you're not burning things to the ground over in this place, the less likely it'll be that you end up in a situation where you do have to push until 10 o'clock at night like a crazy person anyway.
And if you do that, you're like, fuck, I love this. This is
Yeah.
You're all about it, and no one's really surprised because you told your daughter, why are you doing this, Daddy? Like, because I'm into it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, how many times have I taken a couple of days off work and then I'm like,
can't wait to get back
can't wait to get back in there. It's going to be so good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I love that. And look, I mean, Hannah's really doing an amazing job of describing experientially and viscerally what, in very sort of, maybe even obscure language might be called, like it's a transition into systems thinking, right? Where you stop looking at your life as just one thing, but you look at it as a system, because like we are a system, right? Like this is absolutely a biological system sitting in another ecological system, sitting in a corporation, which is a system, running a business, which is, even if you're running your own business, it's a system. So you just are getting to a more accurate view of reality as you stop looking at just a single variable and start, actually looking at the whole system and how that can synergize. So really, really cool, Hannah. Last one. This is a really good one. Good one to end it on. And I think it might be spiritual as well because, I mean, there's some false selfness in this, I suppose, not to spoiler alert it, but myth number 5, this is just who I am. It's just my process.
Yeah.
This is who I am. I just burn out. That's just my process.
Yeah. So I love this one as a thing that I get to say now because it was my story of like, oh, you know, it's all good. I just burn out every 3 months. I have a holiday and I get back on the thing. And someone actually said to me once, it's okay that you do that because you've got really severe ADHD and that's just like kind of how you're going to operate. And so it was really hard for me to pull it apart inside of myself because I'd had someone that I really respected confirm it for me, which I bet happens a lot. Like we're just executives, we're just high level, we're CEOs, we just, you know, we burn out. That's what we do. We push hard and we burn out and that's just what we do. And I call absolute bullshit because that's a story you've told and an identity you've created. And why it's so hard to get yourself out of it is because you've made it your identity. And so your identity has to be crushed and let go of for you to get to the other side of it. And there's grief inside of that. And there's a severe unknown of who your identity is going to be on the other side of this.
And look, I mean, for what it's worth, we just last week we talked about canaries in the coal mine, which is like things that you either feel in yourself or hear in other people that are like, well, this is a bit of a red flag, I suppose. And for better or worse, that's just what we do. Whenever someone tells you something about you and says we, you know, that's just what we do. Like what need is, I mean, that's a need for connection that is showing up. I mean, that's very addict language, right? Like that's kind of like, if she stops doing this, then, you know, what does that mean about me?
Yes.
Right. And so like you can kind of see the unmet and feel the unmet need in that as a desire for connection, desire for validation through that sort of, that's just how we do things. And there's a real beauty in that. And also there can be really negative patterns in that as well, just as you said. And so that's it's hard hitting when you say there's a grief in letting go of that identity because you're not just letting go of the behaviors. You know, there's a saying actually in marketing, it's like you don't change people's beliefs, you change their tribes.
Yes. Well, this would be the other hard thing about it, right? Is if you're operating in a environment where everyone's doing that and suddenly you start only eating meat, doing all this crazy health stuff, really taking care of yourself, finishing work early, whatever it is that changes the fundamental way that you live your life.
Yeah.
People are going to be like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah.
And so it's not only your own identity, it's now your community.
Yes. Which is why that one can take a little, one of our S's is social for that reason, you know, because sometimes you do have to change your environment and your community or change the people around you. And it's great. As we said, you know, Steph yesterday, just completely unprovoked, was like, oh yeah, ever since you started doing keto, I lost 10 kilos. That's great. You know, and my kids are eating more meat and, so it's beautiful, but it can certainly be challenging when the people you're with or your significant other doesn't do that. And so that's why being able to have those conversations is really important because, you know, sorry, I'm sort of taking over
You're fine.
Well, I mean, it's just having the compassion and the understanding for what this really is, right? It's like, it's a sense of connection being built on this. And it's like, you know, in many ways, this is where the person in your life that doesn't want to change, you kind of need to help them see what's possible for them and grow with you in those ways. And that's why it's been so amazing to meet your partner, Deegan, who is just has such a beautiful growth mindset and is just there for all those conversations. Because in many ways, it's like the person doesn't have to go on the exact same journey as you, but they at least need to acknowledge the journey you're on and sort of support in the ways that are true for them as well, you know?
As even inside of this whole burnout thing and with him and me going, on Sunday, I really need to do nothing.
Yeah.
Like it's really important for me to not get burnt out, to maintain my energy and to look after all of these things. I need to do nothing on Sunday. And I'm a woman, so I operate differently. And he's like, well, I'm going to always work. And I'm like, but it actually just is different for both of us.
Yeah.
And that like, even when I would say it, because I've come from a burnout life and male-dominated industries in being an athlete and in the work that I've done in running businesses and in the way that I grew up, it was just like there was kind of a guilt in slowing down and a guilt in being still. You know, to be on the couch for the day is like, are you achieving something there? Like, and to allow myself to go, even if you're not going to stop, even if you need to go and do all these errands and things like that, I just need to be here and do nothing, and for that to be okay. And even though I know all of this stuff, and even though it was totally okay with him, it was still internal me going, am I not good enough now? So, it can get sticky.
It can get sticky. And, well, yeah, I mean, certainly this may or may not apply to you, but can I make an observation which kind of leads to one of our other S's? I mean, as you say that, it almost sounds like, to my mind, there's almost like an underlying guilt for being a woman. Right?
Yeah.
And it's like in a quote unquote productive, is my very essence. And you know me, I'm not like Captain Gender Feminism of the Feminism Police. I'm I obviously believe in a lot of these things, but don't really get caught into a lot of those waves. But it's like, just even in hearing you describe that, and almost the vulnerability it takes for you just to be like, yeah, I'm actually a woman. I just have these particular needs right now. Is like pretty sobering to actually listen to,
Yeah. It's actually come up twice this week with women that I've done alchemy with. One had entered the workforce in the 90s and had severe guilt around taking care of herself and not pushing hard and showing up in the most extreme way possible, because that was what was required to prove herself as a woman in the workforce in that time. And the second one was actually another woman who had never acknowledged that having a cycle meant that she could do things differently around that time. And in me sharing how I operate inside of that for myself, in like, Deegan's really aware of it and he's got it in his phone so that the emotions that come up aren't about him, and and then I maybe don't lift so hard that day, and it's okay if I stay. Like, I'm super aware of that, because I know if I do that well, the 3 weeks after are fucking on point.
Yeah, well, honestly, Anna, like, props to you for having, the courage and humility and vulnerability. And it's sad that it kind of needs to be here, but I guess that's just the truth of it. It's my feeling, the sins of the fathers is often the case, that like, we don't acknowledge some basic biological truths of the 50% of our population. You know what I mean? That, there's cycles and there's hormones and there's all this kind of stuff. And that's why I exist. That's why humans can exist, because of these differences.
Yeah.
Props to you for doing that. And, I mean, I guess as that relates to sexual alchemy, or sexuality is one of the S's, you kind of can't have an honest conversation about human behavior and human development and relationships and interpersonal relationships and leadership without just, understanding these differences in the energetics and the polarity in people. And it might not even be at the, physiological gender level. Sometimes it's men who have feminine energies within them, or women who have masculine energies within masculine, feminine, terminology. But it was really important to bring in for these exact reasons, just to honor and acknowledge gender. So that is absolutely built into Integral Alchemy as well. And props to you for taking a stand for that.
I think that's one of the most important things that should be said about Integral Alchemy as well, because it is a really big balance of feminine. Well, it's polarities. It's polarities in every direction you could ever imagine a polarity.
Yeah.
The surrender and control of the session, the surrender and control of the person sitting on the other side of the session.
Yes.
Being able to be held by both masculine and by feminine, because you need to be held or need to speak things to either one of them, whoever's caused the issue, or whichever one is safer in that time.
Yep.
And for it to be okay, no matter who you are, that both of those things can exist.
Yeah. Well, on that note, we talked a big game 4 months ago, or was it 5 months ago? And
not even. It's like, I think it's been like 3.5 months. I'm not joking.
It's been a hell of a ride.
Yeah.
And I'm so excited to see where we go with this, and so grateful and appreciative of you for all of your eunice, all of your Hannah being Hannah and doing Hannah things, because it's been a hell of a fun time.
It has. It's like a dimension jumping. Not sure where I am, but I'm fucking loving it.
Yeah.
Kind of ride.
Yeah.
So let's go change the whole world, Gav.
Let's go change the whole world.
Yeah.
Watch this space. Maybe we'll do a segue here if need be. But you are obviously doing a lot of this coaching now with people in your particular specialty, working with people who are maybe experiencing and resonating with some of this kind of stuff. There'll be a button somewhere on this, if you're wherever you are. Just book a call and speak to Hannah. I couldn't recommend it highly enough. It'll be one of the best things you do for yourself, guaranteed. And if this conversation hasn't made it that clear, then I'm not sure what will. But I think you do yourself your family, your country, your community, and the world a favor.
And the world.
And the world. Which one? Which world? This world a favor, and book a call with her. I think it'll change your life in ways that will be invaluable.
Thanks, Gav.
Speaking from the heart. Where do you feel that in your body?
Well,
I just told you. All right. Peace out.